Okay, sure. Kid Rock may be a spoiled rich kid with a Fox News obsession and a starless void where his moral center should be. But to be fair, he's also, we got nothing. San Diego's SeaWorld was once considered a family-friendly destination where children could get up close and personal with all kinds of ocean creatures. By 2014, however, the park had become a hotbed of controversy, which had begun after the release of the documentary Blackfish. That film revolved around a 2010 incident in which a SeaWorld trainer was killed by an orca. It questioned the humanity of keeping orcas and dolphins in captivity.
Stress leads to frustration, frustration leads to aggression.
Kid Rock stepped into the controversy when he and country singer Alan Jackson agreed to perform in SeaWorld's Bands, Brew, and Barbecue concert series. Other acts booked by SeaWorld had pulled out to avoid getting sucked into the whole mess. Heart singer Ann Wilson, for example, told Rolling Stone that they had decided not to perform after seeing Blackfish. She said, "What they do is slavery, plain and simple." But Kid Rock didn't seem to mind that. His performance went ahead as scheduled, despite the launch of a petition urging him and Jackson to cancel. If animal lovers were disappointed that Kid Rock had performed at SeaWorld, well, this one will have made them even angrier. It all started when fellow Detroit rocker Ted Nugent posted a photo on Facebook that showed Kid Rock proudly holding up the carcass of a mountain lion he had killed during a hunt. The caption read, "Hail, my Motor City boy Kid Rock, for saving all those mule deer, elk, and livestock by whacking this magnificent mountain lion." Nugent also correctly predicted he and Kid Rock would be criticized by what he called brain-dead squawkers, with their obscene denial that killing lions is wrong. While Nugent's Facebook followers offered a great deal of support, a number of anti-hunting commenters also chimed in, sparking a spirited debate over the merits of killing animals for fun. All told, Nugent's post of Kid Rock and his trophy generated more than 6,700 comments. In April 2023, Bud Light partnered with transgender actor and activist Dylan Mulvaney on an advertising campaign to promote special beer cans featuring her likeness. While the brand was applauded by many for being an ally to the trans community, the team-up with Mulvaney also sparked a vicious anti-trans backlash, one that soon led to an attempted boycott. And we do mean attempted.
Are you not bothered at all by this Bud Light controversy? You're like, nah?
No, not at all. I don't give a what they do.
Among the loudest voices in that backlash belonged to Kid Rock. He expressed his outrage in typically violent fashion, blasting a few cases of Bud Light with an automatic weapon and posting the video on social media. In a subsequent appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, he explained his motivation for this stunt. Apparently, he was tired of companies being okay with what he called this transgender thing. Later that year, Kid Rock was interviewed by Tucker Carlson. During that appearance, he revealed that he was no longer boycotting Bud Light because he felt that he'd made his point. He said, "So, do I want to hold their head underwater and drown them because they made a mistake? No, I think they got the message." When retired NBA great Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter were killed in a tragic helicopter crash in January 2020, countless sports and entertainment figures offered their condolences on social media, and Kid Rock was among them. For some reason, though, his Instagram tribute amounted to a photograph of himself and Donald Trump Jr. on a hunting trip in Texas, proudly posing with a deer they had just killed. In the caption, Kid Rock wrote that he had taken a helicopter on the trip and experienced what he called a very dark and eerie feeling. He also revealed that the gun he had used during the hunt had been nicknamed the Black Mamba, the same nickname that Bryant had given himself. Obviously, nobody was particularly impressed by this. One ex-user wrote, "Who knew that Kobe Bryant's death was really about Kid Rock?" Another described his post as absolutely tasteless. And yet another user summed up the prevailing sentiment by posting, "Interesting how he turned this tragedy into being about him. He does have something in common with the Trumps: narcissism." Kid Rock generated yet another scandal when he weighed in on declining birth rates among Americans during a 2025 appearance on Fox News. This phenomenon has been broadly explained by trends such as fewer teen pregnancies and more women delaying having children. Still, that didn't stop Kid Rock from offering up his own theory.
Who's gonna sleep with these ugly-ass, broke, crazy, deranged, TDS liberal women?
Not content with delivering the kind of line that you'd ordinarily hear from a supporting character in American Psycho, Kid Rock decided to elaborate on his newfound theory.
I mean, you look at these rallies, it's like a bunch of women that no guy wants to sleep with and a bunch of dudes that want to sleep with each other.
When contacted by Newsweek for clarification of his remarks, Kid Rock issued a statement via email. It read, "Thank you for allowing me to clarify my statement. I meant to say super duper ugly liberal women." Predictably, his comments stirred up considerable backlash. Among those to fire back was Stella Parton, the sister of country music legend Dolly Parton, who said, "Liberal women don't sleep with stinky, nasty, dirty, poor hygienic man-babies who whine and disrespect them. They marry and sleep with real men." During the exact same interview on Fox News, Kid Rock also decided to pick a fight with a far more successful, more beloved, and more iconic musician, Bruce Springsteen. Kid Rock's ire was raised by some remarks that the boss had made during a concert in the UK. He had said, "In my home, the America I love, the America I've written about, that has been a beacon of hope and liberty for 250 years, is currently in the hands of a corrupt, incompetent, and treasonous administration." While Springsteen's words were met with thunderous applause at that concert, Kid Rock was apparently somewhat less impressed. First, he dismissed Springsteen as inferior to Bob Seger. Then, despite the fact that Kid Rock comes from a far wealthier background than Springsteen, he attempted to label him as one of
these liberals who has mountains of money that so desperately wants to keep his good standing in the eyes of Hollywood and the elite.
He was apparently so incensed that he later took another shot at Springsteen in a different interview, aired on the same network.
Do that in Europe, what a punk move.
Given America's deeply polarized political spectrum, it's perhaps no surprise that Kid Rock's full-throated support of Donald Trump's MAGA movement has alienated a number of people, and many among these have demonstrated their unhappiness by protesting his concerts. Back in 2017, Kid Rock was chosen as the first act to perform at Detroit's newest venue, Little Caesars Arena. Not everyone was happy with that decision, however. About 200 people showed up to protest before the show. Charles Williams II of the National Action Network said, "We have come today to send a message to Little Caesars. We have come today to send a message to Kid Rock. We will not be disrespected." Years later, protesters continued to flock to Kid Rock's shows due to his alignment with MAGA. In 2025, for example, a protest erupted at Kid Rock's tour opener in Omaha, Nebraska.
We have a right to protest, peaceful protests, and it's very important to do something about it.
Proving that was not an isolated incident, a similar protest greeted Kid Rock when the same tour arrived in Minneapolis. Clearly, Kid Rock has proven his mettle as a political provocateur. But the shoe was on the other foot in August 2025, thanks to a scathing social media post issued by California's Democratic Governor, Gavin Newsom. Newsom, a vocal opponent of Donald Trump and all things MAGA, used the account of his press office to post an AI-generated image of Kid Rock, mocked up as Uncle Sam in a parody of the iconic World War I recruitment poster. Newsom's caption simply read, "I accept." Newsom's post was anything but random either. At the time, his office had been sending out countless tweets mimicking Trump's distinctive social media style. In particular, this tweet was a parody of a similar post that Trump had issued the previous year, when he accepted the faux support of a bogus AI-generated image of Taylor Swift, who had also been decked out like Uncle Sam. And if Newsom sent that tweet to rile up Kid Rock, well, it worked. Reposting the post on his own profile, he wrote, "The only support Gavin Newsom will ever get out of me is from D's nuts." Sadly, this didn't turn out to be the epic clapback he clearly imagined in his head. After just a month, Newsom's tweet had racked up twice as many views as his. Celebrity tantrums are not only unbecoming, but in the age of social media, they can spiral into highly embarrassing viral incidents. Such was the case when Kid Rock took to the stage of Jon Bon Jovi's Nashville bar, JBJ, in February 2025. Veteran Bon Jovi keyboardist David Bryan was celebrating his 63rd birthday at the time, and Kid Rock joined him for a performance of the Creedence Clearwater Revival classic, Proud Mary. In a video filmed from the audience and later posted on TikTok, Kid Rock can be seen clapping his hands together, indicating the crowd should follow suit. Only a few members of the audience do, however, and he quickly grows annoyed, instructing the band to stop playing. He tells his audience, "If you ain't gonna clap, we ain't gonna sing. That's how it's gonna work." The band started back up, and he continued the performance, clapping instructively so the crowd could follow along. After less than a minute, however, he decided that the crowd was not clapping as enthusiastically as he expected. Before storming off, he declared, "You know what? Y'all. You ain't gonna clap. I'm going."
By 2004, Kid Rock had grown popular enough to be invited to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show, which also featured Janet Jackson, Justin Timberlake, Nelly, P. Diddy, and Jessica Simpson. When he took to the stage, Kid Rock wore an American flag as a poncho. This didn't go down well with the veterans of foreign wars, with CBS News reporting that the VFW commander-in-chief slammed the poncho as being in poor taste and extremely disrespectful. In the book, Zell Miller, A Senator Speaks Out on Patriotism, Values and Character, Georgia Senator Zell Miller, a former Marine, wrote that he was even more incensed, saying, "Seeing this ignoramus with his pointed head stuck up through the hole he had cut in the flag of the United States, yelling about having a bottle of scotch and watching lots of crotch, Kid Rock should be tarred and feathered and ridden out of this country on a rail." However, the uproar over his Stars and Stripes clothing choice was completely swept aside by the scandal unleashed by Jackson's notorious wardrobe malfunction and the backlash that followed. Old Glory wasn't the only flag that created controversy for Kid Rock. In fact, he's been criticized repeatedly over the years for unfurling the Confederate flag during performances. Despite backlash and protests, he remained defiant. In 2008, Kid Rock told The Guardian he had no plans to stop waving the flag, saying, "Sure, it's definitely got some scars, but I've never had an issue with it. To me, it just represents pride in Southern rock and roll music. Plus, it just looks cool." However, a survey undertaken by market research firm YouGov determined that 41% of Americans believe the Confederate flag represents racism, which explains why protests erupted when the Detroit NAACP presented Kid Rock with an award. A protester told the Associated Press, "You know what that flag stands for? It stands for hatred, bigotry, racism, murder." According to Billboard, when Kid Rock accepted the award, he said, "I've never flown that flag with any hate in my heart, not 1 ounce." In 2015, Kid Rock made his feelings about the backlash crystal clear when he relayed the following statement to Fox News host Megyn Kelly. "Please tell the people who are protesting to kiss my ass. Ask me some questions." The 2010s found Kid Rock becoming increasingly political, and his views leaned heavily to the right. In 2017, the rapper made a provocative statement when he took to Twitter and shared an image of a political yard sign reading, "Kid Rock for US Senate." He then made an apparent announcement he was planning a political run, writing, "I have had a ton of emails and texts asking me if this campaign website is real. The answer is an absolute yes." But was it? While visiting the Howard Stern show, he confessed the whole thing was a hoax.
No, I'm not running for Senate.
Thank God.
Like, who couldn't figure that out?
His admission resulted in a complaint to the Federal Elections Commission, which launched an investigation. The FEC ultimately concluded there was no evidence that Kid Rock took any official action after that initial tweet, adding, "Further pursuing this matter would have been an unwise use of commission resources." Before Kid Rock's Senate run was revealed to be a PR stunt, he was introduced as the next senator from the state of Michigan when he took to the stage at a concert in his hometown of Detroit in September 2017. As Time reported, he then delivered a profanity-laced stump speech that laid out the bare bones of his decidedly un-PC platform. He railed against tax dollars being used to help. In his words, "Some deadbeat or a single mother who keeps having kid after kid." He also blasted the Colin Kaepernick-inspired Take a Knee protests before asking, "Why these days is everything so gay?" On the topic of transgender rights, he declared, "Whatever you have between your legs should determine the bathroom that you use." He also addressed accusations that he was a racist, which had been fueled by his love of the Confederate flag. He said, "I love black people, and I love white people too, but neither as much as I love red, white, and blue."
I'm the most unpolitically correct person you'll meet, and I'm very, very proud of that.
In January 2018, the National Hockey League announced that Kid Rock would be the performer at that year's NHL All-Star Game. As Sporting News reported, the announcement was instantly greeted by concerns over his alleged racism, sexism, and homophobia, along with his continued use of the Confederate flag as a stage prop and his opposition to controversial NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick. Twitter unleashed a tsunami of outrage. One comment read, "WTF are you doing, NHL?" Another user wrote, "This is unbelievably out of touch. Why not somebody uncontroversial and broadly appealing, like anyone else?" According to ESPN, the NHL was aware of the opposition to featuring Kid Rock at the All-Star Game, but stood by its decision. As NHL exec Steve Mayer explained, the league selected Kid Rock simply because he was a longtime hockey fan. He said, "It's all about the entertainment at the end of the day for us, and this selection was purely based on that, and the fact that Kid Rock is a hockey lover." After years of keeping her political views to herself, Taylor Swift took to Instagram to publicly throw her support behind two Democratic congressional candidates during the 2018 midterm elections. A subsequent Vogue cover story focused on her decision to finally share her political opinions with fans. The day after the Vogue story was published, Kid Rock felt the need to throw in his 2 cents in a scorched earth tweet. He wrote, "Taylor Swift wants to be a Democrat because she wants to be in movies. Period." He then made a crude reference to Swift performing an adult act, adding, "Oldest move in the book. Good luck, girl." Swifties came after Kid Rock with the kind of white-hot fury that can only be mustered by a teenager. They were joined in their outrage by some celebrities who were also appalled by the insulting, sexist remarks. Chrissy Teigen simply wrote, "You're pathetic." Patton Oswalt sarcastically wrote, "Amen, Bob. She should be a real American like you, growing up on a 6-acre estate complete with tennis court and horse paddock, and then bravely adopting a faux redneck kicker cosplay persona. God bless you, Buddy Ruff." Kid Rock was in a celebratory mood while attending the opening of his new Nashville, Tennessee eatery, Kid Rock's big-ass honky-tonk rock and roll steakhouse. Fox and Friends host Steve Doocy was on hand to get a few comments. And sure enough, he had a few. Sipping what seemed to be an adult beverage from a styrofoam cup, Kid Rock told Doocy, "God forbid you say something a little bit wrong. You're racist, homophobic, Islamophobic, this, that, and the other. People need to calm down and get a little less politically correct." He wrapped up with one final piece of, well, advice.
And I would say, love everybody except, I'd say, screw that Joey Behar.
Doocy immediately apologized to viewers for the rapper's salty language. Kid Rock clarified, but didn't back down, saying he apologized for the language, but not the sentiment. The following day, Behar, a stand-up comic before joining The View, responded to the insult in her own way during a broadcast of the daytime talk show.
This and this will be happy to have you on the show and have a beer.
According to Rolling Stone, backlash to Kid Rock's comments was so severe that he wound up being booted as Grand Marshal of Nashville's 2018 Christmas parade. In November 2019, Kid Rock jumped on stage at his Nashville, Tennessee restaurant and went off on, you guessed it, a profanity-laden rant. Those remarks were captured on video and wound up in the hands of TMZ. In between F-bombs, Kid Rock trashed Oprah Winfrey, Joy Behar, and Kathy Lee Gifford, telling anyone who thought he was a racist to, quote, "F*** off." With one audience member telling NBC News that Kid Rock appeared to be blackout drunk, the rapper's tirade was interrupted when a member of the restaurant's team escorted him off stage. He later offered a sort of explanation on Twitter, claiming it was based on the way Winfrey had asked him to do her show years earlier. He wrote, "My people tried to get me to do the Oprah Winfrey show years ago, and her people wanted me to write down 5 reasons why I loved her and her show. I said, F that and her. End of story." There was fallout. According to the Detroit Free Press, days after the video leaked, the company that owned the Detroit arena housing his Made in Detroit bar announced Kid Rock had, quote, voluntarily decided not to renew the agreement, and the bar would shut down. The company would seek a new establishment that shared their company values. Kid Rock commented on the closure in a Facebook post that boasted his many charitable donations to Detroit organizations and undying affinity for his hometown and its residents. However, the rapper also stated, "I learned long ago, go where you're celebrated, not tolerated." In late 2019, on the same day of the announcement that Kid Rock's Made in Detroit restaurant would be shutting down, the establishment settled a racial discrimination lawsuit filed by a former employee. According to the Detroit Metro Times, Corrine Silverman Maddox, who claimed to be the restaurant's only black bartender, filed a federal lawsuit against Made in Detroit. She alleged she was fired for wearing her hair in, quote, a curly afro instead of straightening it or putting it up like her Caucasian co-workers. While the terms of the settlement were not made public, the lawsuit claims that Silverman Maddox was abruptly suspended for allegedly overpouring a single drink. Following her suspension, Silverman Maddox alleged she was removed from the bar's schedule and eventually denied access to the schedule entirely. When her attorney informed the bar that she had retained a civil rights attorney, she was then officially fired. When the Detroit Free Press first covered the lawsuit, Kid Rock, who wasn't named in the suit, responded by blasting the newspaper on Twitter, saying, "More bad journalism, another attempt to get cheap clicks and views. Only minor investigating instead of immediate reporting would reveal the correct facts." In 2001, Kid Rock started dating Pamela Anderson. According to Us Weekly, they got engaged in 2002, only to break up in 2003. They reconnected in 2006 and got married in the French Riviera that same year. The marriage ended quickly, however, with Anderson filing for divorce 17 days later.
I was bored. I felt like it was just time to move on.
British comedian Sacha Baron Cohen may have shed some light on the reason behind the marriage's brevity. Speaking with the Daily Beast's Last Laugh podcast about his 2006 film Borat, he talked about a scene featuring his character throwing Anderson over his shoulder and accidentally injuring her jaw. He said, "She lost two things. One, she lost a tiny bit of bone from her jaw, and secondly, she lost her husband." He was apparently referencing a 2006 report in the New York Post, in which a source alleged Kid Rock attended a Borat screening and became incensed with the way Anderson was portrayed. The source shared, "Kid Rock started screaming at Pam, saying she had humiliated herself and telling her, 'You're nothing but a you're a how could you do that movie?'" Cohen confirmed that through a text exchange, Anderson told him that the movie was in fact the reason for her quickie divorce.